Once upon a time there was a boy named Emeka. He was 15 years old. He lived with his aunt in a small house in Lagos. Emeka was quiet and kind. He had dark brown skin and deep brown eyes that looked worried most of the time. His hair was short and neat. He always wore simple clothes, a plain shirt and worn-out trousers. He helped his aunt every day. He cleaned the house, washed the dishes, and swept the dusty floor. He dreamed of going to school and making his life better, but money was always scarce. One bright morning, Emeka was in the living room. He helped his aunt arrange chairs for the day. The walls were painted white, but they had faded over the years. A small radio crackled quietly on a shelf. His aunt, Mrs. Nkairu, hummed as she matched pairs of blue plastic chairs. Emeka dusted the top of a tall cupboard. He did not know that today would change his life. Then they heard a loud engine outside. The sound made Emeka's heart beat faster. He and his aunt hurried to the front door. Through the gate, they saw a black SUV that looked like a small bus. It gleamed in the sun. The engine idled with a soft growl. A single man in a smart suit stepped out and opened the back door. Emeka's aunt gasped. "It's her time," Mrs. Nkairu whispered. She clutched Emeka's hand and led him into the yard. Emeka felt a knot in his stomach. The man in the suit bowed slightly to Emeka and his aunt. He said, "Good morning, Emeka." His voice was smooth and confident. Emeka swallowed hard. A tall woman stepped out next. She wore bright red sneakers and tight black leggings that showed every muscle in her legs. Her top was gold and sparkled in the sun. Her skin was smooth and glowed under the morning light. She looked strong like a warrior. She had long braided hair that fell past her shoulders. She walked with her head held high. Emeka stared without blinking. "Emeka," she said with a soft but firm voice. She smiled, and the silver earrings on her ears caught the sunlight. "Hello, dear." She reached out and patted his shoulder. Her hand felt firm, like hard steel under smooth skin. Emeka felt his cheeks grow hot. He mumbled, hello, His voice trembled. He felt like a small bird in a big storm. His aunt bowed her head slightly and said, "Welcome, Please come in." She led the woman into the small living room. Emeka stepped behind, watching her every move. The woman looked around and smiled at Emeka's aunt. Then she looked at Emeka. "Your name is Emeka?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, She turned back to the man in the suit and said, "You may film now." The man took out a small camera and pressed a button. A red light blinked. They were live. Emeka's breath caught in his throat. "Good morning, everyone," the man said into the camera. "We are live from Lagos. Today, we witness a very special event." Emeka swallowed. He did not know what to expect. His aunt watched him anxiously. The woman in gold walked closer. "My name is Amora," she said, her voice clear and sure. "I am 50 years old. I have been told that I look much younger. Some even say I look like I am 25. Today, I will marry a boy named Emeka." She paused so the camera could catch his face. Emeka's heart pounded. He felt as if he could not breathe. He looked at his aunt. She wore a worried smile. "Why me?" Emeka whispered, almost to himself. But the camera was on, and the man in the suit raised his eyebrows at Emeka. Amora laughed softly. "Because I choose you, Emeka. I want a whirlwind marriage." She winked at the camera. "We are going to show the world that love can be surprising." Emeka felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at his aunt, hoping she would stop this. His aunt touched his arm. "Emeka," she said in a low voice, "Amora wants to help us. She has plenty of money. She can pay for our home and send you to a good school." Tears welled up in her eyes. Emeka's mind raced. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to run away. But he also thought of school and books. He thought of a roof that did not leak when it rained. He thought of his aunt's tired face. He took a shaky breath and said, "Okay, His voice was barely more than a whisper. Amora beamed. "That is wonderful, Emeka." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box. She handed it to him. Inside was a simple silver ring. It was not fancy, but it felt heavy in his small hand. The camera showed the ring to the world. Comments popped up. OMG, he is so lucky. What is going on? This is crazy. Emeka slid the ring onto his finger. It was too big. It slipped to his knuckle. He looked at Amora, and she laughed again. It was a warm laugh, but it made Emeka's skin itch. We will make it fit later, she said kindly. Now, let us celebrate. She turned and walked out into the yard. A long red carpet had appeared under the SUV. 2 chairs sat at the end, facing a small table stacked with pastries and juice. People began to arrive. Some were Amora's friends and helpers. They carried cameras, lights, and bouquets of flowers. A band set up drums and guitars. A singer tested her microphone. Soon, the yard was filled with music and chatter. Emeka stood by his aunt. He wore his plain shirt and trousers, but someone handed him a neat jacket. He slipped it on, feeling tight around his thin arms. Amora wore a shimmering gown now, not gold but deep blue. It hugged her strong body and made her shine in the afternoon sun. The singer began to sing a slow song. Emeka's aunt wiped a tear from her cheek. Emeka looked at the cake on the table. It was white with pink roses made of sugar. He imagined tasting it, but his stomach turned. The singer finished and everyone clapped. Amora stepped forward to a small podium. She tapped a glass. The noise died down. Thank you all for coming, she said loudly so everyone could hear. Today, I marry Emeka. This is not just for me. It is for his family. His aunt here will never worry about money again. And Emeka, she looked right at him. Welcome to my world. She held out her hand. Emeka took it. It was soft and cool. But when she squeezed his fingers, he felt a spark of fear. The singer began another song, and the party started. People ate pastries and drank juice. They laughed and took pictures. Emeka stood beside Amora, looking around in shock. He felt like a small fish in a giant ocean of cameras, lights, and music. Later, the man in the suit said, "It is time to go inside for dinner." He led everyone to a small tent set up next to the house. Inside, long tables were covered in white cloth. Candles flickered, but a strong warm breeze blew through the sides. Amora sat at the head of the table. Emeka sat next to her. On his plate was rice with stew, plantains, and a piece of chicken. Emeka picked at the edge of his rice. He did not want to eat in front of so many people. A woman next to him leaned over. "You must eat, child." She smiled. "Miss Amora is good to you." Emeka nodded and took a small bite. The stew was spicy, but it warmed his throat. He chewed slowly. Amora watched him eat. When he swallowed, she said, "You are very brave, Emeka." He swallowed again and said, "I am just tired." Amora's eyes softened. "It has been a big day. Go rest soon." After dinner, the guests left one by one. Emeka and his aunt followed Amora and the man in the suit back to the house. Inside, there was a wide hallway lined with tall mirrors and bright lights. Emeka's shoes clicked on the shiny floor. Amora led him up a polished wooden staircase. She stopped at a door at the end of a long corridor. She opened it and stepped inside first. Emeka held his breath. The room was large and elegant. It had a big four-poster bed with white curtains. The sheets were crisp and clean. A soft rug covered the floor. On one wall stood a huge mirror that reached from floor to ceiling. It had a gold frame with carvings of flowers and vines. Amora motioned for Emeka to enter. "This is your room," she said. "I hope you like it." Emeka stepped in and looked around. He felt like he had walked into a palace. He had never seen something so grand. His eyes rested on the mirror. He saw his own reflection. A small, thin boy standing in a room made for royalty. He pulled at his jacket. I like it," he said softly. Amora smiled. "Good. Get some rest, and tomorrow we will have breakfast together." She patted his shoulder again. "Sleep well, Emeka." Emeka nodded. She left the room and closed the door. He set down his jacket and sat on the edge of the bed. He took off his shoes and lay back on the soft sheets. He stared at the mirror. It seemed to glow in the dim light of the corridor lamp outside. Emeka's mind buzzed with questions and fear. He felt small and alone. He closed his eyes, but he could still feel the mirror's gaze on him. He thought he heard a quiet echo of laughter, but it might have been his imagination. His heart pounded. He tried to think of happy things, but all he could see was Amora's strong muscles and her bright smile. Emeka sat up and rubbed his eyes. The mirror looked empty. He climbed under the covers and curled up. His breath slowed as he drifted towards sleep. In the silence, one final thought ran through his mind. What secrets hide behind that shining mirror? And with that question, the room grew darker around him, and Emeka fell into a restless sleep, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, Emeka woke before the sun. His eyes opened to the hush of the big bedroom. The mirror in the corner caught a pale glow from the hallway. He blinked and sat up, the sheets sliding off his legs. His heart still beat fast from last night's fear. He pressed his hands to his chest and took a deep breath. The room felt cold, though the air outside would soon warm. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and placed his feet on the soft rug. The door stood closed, and through the crack he heard a faint sound. A low thump. Then another. A muted echo of what could be a soft landing. Emeka stood and walked to the door. He pressed his ear against it and listened. The thumps grew louder, steady like a drum. He recognized them then, Amora's workout. She must be in the room across the hall, lifting heavy weights before dawn. The sound rolled through the halls of the mansion. Emeka opened the door quietly and peered into the hallway. The flickering light from a tall lamp cast long shadows on the polished floor. He walked down the corridor, careful not to make a sound. His sandals clicked very softly. At the end of the hall he saw the door ajar. A warm, pale light spilled out from the room beyond. He approached slowly, each step measured. Inside, Amora stood by a set of dumbbells that looked twice the size of Emeka's head. Her leggings hugged her muscular legs, and her gold top glowed under the overhead lamp. She gripped one dumbbell in each hand and lifted them up by her shoulders. Her arms flexed and the muscles rose like small hills beneath her skin. Emeka watched in awe. Her breathing was steady and strong. The mirror behind her showed her whole body in perfect form. Every muscle moved in harmony. She raised the weights above her head, held them for a count, then lowered them back down. Thump, thump, thump. She switched arms and repeated the motion. Emeka's heart pounded as if he wanted to join her. He watched the sweat bead on her forehead and roll down her cheek. Even in the dim light, she shone like a warrior ready for battle. Amora paused and set the weights down. She turned and stretched her arms wide, her muscles rippling. Then she smiled, looking at herself in the mirror. Emeka felt a chill. Her strong shoulders rolled back, and she straightened her spine. The mirror made her look taller and more powerful. Emeka swallowed hard. Amora glanced over her shoulder. She had not heard Emeka enter. Her bright eyes met his in the mirror's reflection first. Then she turned. "Good morning," she said, her voice soft but sure. "You're up early." Emeka stepped back, nearly tripping on his sandals. I couldn't sleep," he said. His voice shook. He hoped she would not scold him for spying. Amora set her hands on her hips and smiled kindly. "Come here," she said. "Watch closely." She reached down and picked up a resistance band, a thick loop of rubber. She stepped onto it with both feet and held the other side in her hands. Emeka watched as she pulled the band up, the rubber stretching tight. She worked her biceps, then switched to her back, and then to her legs. She bent and straightened, each motion precise and smooth. Emeka's mouth went dry. He stood at the door, rooted to the spot. He did not understand how she stayed so strong and young at 50 years old. The muscles rose and fell like waves on the ocean. He had never seen anything like it. Amora finished her workout and dropped the band. She wiped her forehead with a towel and walked over to Emeka. "You look worried," she said, her tone gentle. "Are you all right?" Emeka nodded but did not answer. He felt small next to her. His plain shirt and worn trousers matched the dim hallway. Amora wore perfect fitness clothes and moved like a dancer. "Come have some breakfast," she said. "You'll feel better." Emeka followed her out of the room. They walked down the hall to a sunny patio overlooking a manicured garden. A long table stood with plates, bowls, and glasses. Fresh fruit, bread, and juice waited. Amora poured 2 glasses of orange juice and handed one to Emeka. "Drink up," she said. "You need fuel." Emeka took the glass and sipped. The juice was sweet and tangy. He closed his eyes. It filled his body with warmth. He sighed without thinking. Amora laughed softly. "See? Better already." He opened his eyes and looked at her. "How do you stay so fit?" he asked. "I mean, how do you have those muscles? At your age?" She set down her own glass and leaned back in her chair. The sunlight caught her braided hair and turned it dark red. "It takes work," she said. "I train every day. I watch what I eat. Discipline is key." Emeka bit into a slice of bread. He chewed slowly, tasting butter. "But other people at 50 years old, they slow down. They get tired," he said. Amora nodded. "Yes, most do. But I am not most people." She smiled, but Emeka thought he saw something flicker behind her eyes. A quick flash of something dark, like a secret she did not want to share. He swallowed and asked quietly, "Does it ever hurt? All that lifting?" Her smile grew wider. "Pain is part of growth," she said. "If it hurts, you know you are changing. Embrace it." Emeka felt a shiver. He set down his bread and looked away. He did not feel brave enough to argue. Instead, he drank more juice. They ate in silence for a few moments. Birds chirped in the garden. A servant brought hot coffee for Amora. She waved him away politely. After breakfast, Amora stood and stretched one arm above her head. "Got to get ready for today's shoot," she said. "Grab your things and meet me in the living room in 10 minutes. Emeka nodded and stood. He felt his legs wobble. He steadied himself and followed her feedback. He walked back to his room. His heart still beat fast. The mirror inside caught his reflection. A boy wearing a housecoat that draped over his small frame. His eyes looked bigger than usual. He rubbed his forehead and felt tired again. He opened his closet and changed into simple clothes, a plain t-shirt and jeans. He combed his hair with his fingers and left the room. The mirror watched him go. In the living room, cameras and lights filled the space. A crew buzzed around, setting up shots. Amora sat on a plush sofa, scrolling on her phone. Emeka stood beside her, curious and nervous. The man in the suit came over. "We're going live in 5, he said. "Amora, Emeka, get ready." Amora held out her phone. "Show me the comments," she said. Emeka leaned in and read the screen. Lines of text scrolled by too fast to follow. "People are asking, how is this real?" he said. "Anne, can we get tickets?" Amora laughed. "They love it," she said. "Tell them hello." Emeka swallowed and tapped the phone. He typed, "Hello." He hit send. Instantly more comments poured in. He said hello. OMG. So cute. He handed the phone back. Amora's smile looked bright again. "Good job," she said. "They like you." The director called out, "Places, please." Lights flashed. The camera rolled. Amora and Emeka sat together on the sofa. Amora draped her arm over Emeka's shoulder. He froze. "Welcome back," Amora said to the camera. "Today I'm going to show you my daily routine. And I'll introduce you to my handsome husband, Emeka." The crew laughed softly. A light turned green. The man in the suit spoke into a microphone. "We are live to 5 million viewers." Emeka swallowed. His stomach twisted. He felt the world turn upside down. Amora leaned toward him and whispered, "Just smile. It will be over soon." He nodded, but his cheeks felt hot. He forced a small smile. The camera caught it and magnified it 10 times. Emeka felt like a bug under a magnifying glass. Amora began to show her routine, her protein shake, her warm-up stretches, her clean meals. She spoke clearly and looked into the camera. Emeka listened but felt his mind drift. He thought of school. He thought of his aunt. He thought of real life outside this strange bubble. The shoot ended after an hour. The crew packed up and the lights went off. Emeka felt relief wash over him. Amora stood and stretched her arms wide. "Great job today," she said. "You were a star." Emeka forced another smile. "Thanks," he said. Amora patted his shoulder. "Meet me in the garden at 3. I want to show you something fun." He nodded and left to find his aunt. His legs felt shaky. He found Mrs. Nkairu in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. She saw him and smiled, but her eyes looked tired. "How did it go?" she asked quietly. He shrugged. "Okay," he said. "It was weird." She nodded. "Just smile for a little while," she said. "We need the money." Emeka bit his lip and looked away. He paused before leaving. "Aunt," he said softly, "did you ever wonder why she stays so young?" Mrs. Nkairu dropped her knife and turned to him. She swallowed hard. "Child," she breathed, "do not speak such thoughts." He frowned. I saw something in the mirror," he said. "There were shadows behind her. I think I saw children's faces." His aunt's face went pale. She wiped her hand on her apron. "Go rest," she said. "Don't let your mind wander." Emeka nodded and hurried away. His aunt watched him go, fear flashing in her eyes. At 3 o'clock, Emeka found the garden. It was full of bright flowers and tall trees. A stone path wound through the grass. He saw Amora at the far end, sitting on a bench. She patted the space beside her. Emeka sat down. She handed him a smooth, dark stone. "This is for you," she said. "It's from the river near my old home." He turned the stone in his hand. It felt cool and heavy. "Thank you," he said. She smiled. "I used to hold stones like this when I was a child. They reminded me of my strength." He looked at her. "Your strength, it's amazing." She laughed and stood. "Come on." She led him to a small fountain shaped like a mermaid. Water trickled from her mouth into a shallow pool. A wheelbarrow filled with flower petals lay nearby. Amora dipped her hand into the water and splashed some on her face. Then she scooped petals and let them drift across the surface. She focused on the mermaid's reflection. Emeka watched her. She looked peaceful for a moment, almost ordinary. Then she turned and looked at the mirror leaning against a nearby tree. It was an old, full-length mirror with a faded gold frame. Emeka had not noticed it before. It stood alone in the grass, reflecting the sky and the treetops. "What is that?" he asked. Amora's smile faded. "Just an old mirror I found," she said. "I like to see the clouds." Emeka stood and approached it. He felt a breeze ripple across the glass. He peered into it. For a moment he saw only himself and the green grass behind him. Then the air shifted. He saw shapes move. He blinked hard. The shapes stayed. Faint outlines of small bodies. Children holding hands, standing behind Amora's reflection. Their faces were pale, like moonlight on stone. They did not move, but he felt their eyes on him. He stumbled back. His heart pounded. "Amora," he said, voice shaking, "who are those behind you?" Amora's face hardened. She walked to the mirror and stood in front of it. She held out her hand, palm flat. The children's shapes shifted, but they stayed. She did not touch them. Emeka watched, frozen. The mirror showed Amora's strong figure, but behind her, the shadows of children still stood. Their mouths opened, but no sound came out. Their eyes were empty holes that drew him in. He wanted to scream. He wanted to run. But he could not tear his eyes away. Then Amora turned and placed a hand on Emeka's shoulder. Her touch was warm. He jumped. "Come away from that," she said softly. "It's just an old mirror. Sometimes it shows things we want to hide." He did not answer. He stared at the glass. The children's shapes faded, melting into the trees and sky. Emeka shook his head. "No," he whispered. I saw them. Amora sighed and took his hand. Come on, she said. Let's go inside. He followed her, his gaze fixed on the mirror until he was inside the house. The door closed behind him, muffling the world outside. Emeka placed the dark stone from the fountain on a small table. He walked down the hallway, his footsteps echoing. He passed the big mirror that led to his room. He did not look at it. He felt the weight of what he had seen pressing on his chest. He reached his room and shut the door. He sat on the bed and hugged his knees. His mind raced with images of the pale children. He closed his eyes, but the faces stayed when he blinked. That night, Emeka lay in bed and listened to the hush of the mansion. The moonlight crept through the curtains and painted the floor silver. He thought he heard whispers in the walls. He pressed his pillow over his ears. He dreamed. In his dream, he stood before the old mirror in the garden. The children's shapes stood there again. They reached toward him, their hands trembling. Their eyes begged for help. Their mouths opened wide in silent cries. Emeka stepped forward, but the ground turned to water beneath his feet. He sank into the pond that the mirror had become. The mermaid's fountain bubbled beside him. The children's faces floated above the water, their hair drifting like seaweed. His chest tightened. He tried to call out, but his voice was gone. He reached for the shore, but it slipped away. He turned and saw Amora standing on the bank, her expression calm. She held the dark stone in her hand. She raised it and the children's faces shivered. Emeka reached for her, but the stone glowed in her palm. The glow spread across the water, and the children's shapes dissolved into fog. Emeka felt himself fall deeper into the pond as the fog closed in around him. He woke with a start. His body shook. He sat up, gasping. The moonlight still painted the floor. His heart pounded in his ears. He wiped sweat from his forehead. He looked around the room. Everything was normal. The mirror stood in the corner, dark and silent. Emeka pressed his back to the headboard. He slid down until he sat on the floor. He wrapped his arms around his legs and buried his face in his knees. He stayed that way until dawn, when a pale light crept under the door. The house was quiet. Emeka closed his eyes. He drew a shaky breath and whispered to himself, I saw them. I saw the children. He did not know what it meant. He did not know what to do. But he knew he could never forget their pale faces. The secret behind Amora's beauty had shown itself at last. And as the first bird sang outside, Emeka closed his eyes and prayed for morning to bring answers, though he feared it might bring even darker truths. Emeka woke with the sun high in the sky. He felt heavy in his chest. Last night's dream still raced in his mind. He sat up and rubbed his eyes. His body ached from worry and fear. He did not want to stay in bed another minute. He slipped out of his room and closed the door softly. The hall was quiet. Mirrors on the walls reflected his small figure walking alone. His sandals made soft clicks on the polished floor. He held his breath and tiptoed past the study, past the lounge, until he reached the vanity room door. Inside the vanity room, sunlight poured through the tall windows. Dust floated in the light. The room felt bright and calm. A long counter held makeup brushes, lotions, and hair combs. A wide mirror leaned against the wall. On the counter lay a single phone, its screen dark. Emeka's heart pounded as he looked at it. He stepped forward, careful not to touch anything. His hand shook as he reached for the phone. When his fingers closed around it, the screen lit up with a soft glow. Emeka held it close. He tapped the home button and entered the code he had seen Amora use before. The screen unlocked. He saw the photo app. There, hidden at the bottom, was a folder named Private. He tapped it. The first image loaded. Emeka's breath froze. A small child lay on the floor, arms bound by thick rope. The child's eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. The room in the picture was dark and empty except for that child. He swallowed hard and scrolled. The next image showed a little girl tied to a wooden chair. Her head slumped forward. Her feet dangled above the ground. There was a dark stain under her, like spilled water mixed with red. Emeka felt bile rise in his throat. He forced himself to swipe again. A third picture appeared. A small boy lay still on a metal table. His clothes were torn. The table was cold, its surface shining under a single light bulb. The boy's face was pale, his eyes closed forever. Emeka's hand loosened on the phone. He gasped and put his free hand over his mouth. He tried to remember his breathing. A soft creak came from the hallway behind the door. Footsteps approached, slow and even. Emeka's heart slammed against his ribs. He had no time. He tapped the home button. The screen flipped to the lock page. He locked the phone with a slide. Emeka set it gently back on the counter. He shoved aside a hairbrush to cover it. Then he turned and backed out of the room. His back hit the cool wall in the hall. Emeka slid down until he sat on the floor. His legs trembled. He pressed his hands to his knees and tried to calm his racing heart. He heard the footsteps stop at the vanity room door. A servant's voice, soft, said, "Hello? Miss Amora." Emeka pressed his ear to the wall and stayed silent. After a moment, the servant walked on. The click of shoes faded. Emeka waited until all sound died. Then he crept away, putting distance between himself and that horrible secret. By evening, Emeka felt hollow. He had no appetite, but he sat at the dinner table anyway. The dining hall glowed with candlelight. Silver holders lined the long table. Plates of jollof rice and chicken stew steamed in the center. Emeka stared at his plate, unable to lift a fork. His aunt, Mrs. Nkairu, sat beside him. She poured water into his glass and placed her hand on his arm. "Eat, child," she whispered. "It will calm you." Emeka shook his head. His throat felt tight. Across from him, Amora watched with a patient smile. Her muscles relaxed under her dress. She held a fork in one hand and lifted a piece of rice. "Try it," she said kindly. "It is good." She ate a small bite and closed her eyes as if savoring a fine taste. Emeka forced himself to pick up his fork. He scooped a small bit of rice and stew. He brought it toward his mouth. Then he set the fork down hard. His aunt gasped. Silverware clattered on the plate. Emeka stood and scraped his chair back. The room fell silent. The servants froze. Candle flames flickered. Emeka's voice trembled but rang out clear. "What did you do to those children?" Amora's fork hovered in midair. She looked at him, calm. "What are you talking about, Emeka?" she asked softly. He pointed at her. "On your phone, photos of kids you tied up and killed. I saw them today." His chest heaved. He swallowed and pressed his hands on the table for support. Aunt's eyes widened. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to speak, but no words came. Amora's face did not change. She set her fork down and leaned forward. "Let's not say such things," she said gently. "I know you are tired. You have had a big day. Perhaps you are imagining things." Emeka's cheeks burned. He said, "I am not imagining. I opened your phone and saw them. Those children are gone because of you." Amora's smile turned faint. "Emeka, sit down. You are making a scene." She spoke softly, but her tone held power. It stopped the servants from moving. He glared at her. "Show me your phone. Let me see those pictures again." His voice cracked. Amora studied him with cool eyes. Then she rose from her chair. Chairs scraped on the floor. She walked around the table and faced him. Candlelight danced on her skin. "Listen, child," she said. "I won't let you speak like this. You will eat your meal, and you will rest. I will not show you any pictures because they do not exist." Emeka stood tall, his small frame shaking. "I will not eat until you explain." His voice shook but stayed strong. His aunt rose and stepped between them. "Please, Emeka," she whispered. "Sit down." She placed her hand on his arm. Emeka shook it off. "No," he said. "She must answer me." His eyes locked on Amora's. Amora nodded slowly. "Very well." She turned away and strode back to her seat. She sat, folding her hands on the table. "Do not accuse me unless you have proof." Her voice was calm but cold. Emeka stared at the empty space where his proof still lay hidden. He wanted to shout but could not. The servants stood rigidly in the shadows, waiting. His aunt took a deep breath. She motioned Emeka to sit. After a moment, he lowered himself onto his chair. His chair scraped once as he moved. He closed his eyes and fought tears. Amora leaned forward. "I have done nothing to hurt anyone," she said. "These stories will stop if you eat and rest." Emeka forced himself to pick up his fork again. He scooped a small bite of rice. He chewed and swallowed. His aunt watched, relief on her face. Amora sat back and looked at him with a soft expression. The rest of the meal continued in tense quiet. Emeka's mind raced with questions. He felt sick but forced down another small bite. At last, the candles burned low. Amora stood and clapped lightly. "Good night, everyone," she said. "Thank you for joining us." She walked away. The servants followed and began to clear the table. Emeka and his aunt rose slowly. They walked through the hall. Emeka's legs felt weak, like jelly under his skin. His aunt put her arm around him. "It will be all right," she said in a low voice. "Try to rest." Emeka did not answer. He barely heard her. In his room, Emeka closed the door and sank to the floor. He pressed his back against it and slid down until he sat with his knees to his chest. His breath came in short bursts. He looked at the big mirror in the corner. The last light from the hallway lamp shone on its glass. Emeka stared at his reflection. His eyes dark and hollow, his shirt rumpled. Then he heard it. A soft whisper, so low he thought he imagined it. "They remember you." The words drifted in the silence. Emeka's breath caught. He looked away from the mirror. Then he heard it again. "They remember you." The voice sounded sad and tired. He turned toward the mirror slowly. His reflection stared back. Behind him in the glass, faint outlines of small hands pressed against the glass, reaching toward him. Emeka jumped up and backed away. "No!" he shouted. He covered his face with his hands. His legs stumbled until he hit the bed. He collapsed onto the mattress and threw the covers over his head. He heard the whisper once more. "They remember you." It faded into the dark. Emeka lay still, his heart pounding. He did not move until the whisper was gone. The room was silent again, but Emeka knew the truth. He pressed his eyes shut and prayed for sleep, though he feared the night held more secrets than he could bear. Emeka woke to the sound of quiet rustling in the hallway. His eyes snapped open, and for a moment he lay still, listening. The whisper from last night echoed in his mind. "They remember you." He pressed his hand against his chest to steady his racing heart. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood. His muscles ached from fear more than from sleep. He knew he could not stay another night. He slipped on his sandals and crept toward the door. The mirror in the corner caught his reflection, and he forced himself not to look at it. He padded down the corridor toward the front door. His aunt's door stood ajar. Through the opening he saw her asleep on the floor mattress she used for visitors. He paused, soft light from the hallway lamp painting her face. He wanted to wake her and run together, but he feared waking her would bring questions he had no answers for. He moved past her door and pressed his hand to the cool doorknob of the mansion's main entrance. It turned easily. He sighed with relief, sensing the fresh air waiting outside. Before he could push the door open, a firm hand grabbed his arm. Emeka yelped and turned to see Amora's dark eyes fixed on him. She wore a long white robe that fluttered in the hallway breeze. Her skin glowed in the dim light. She looked calm but strong. Emeka tried to pull away, but her grip tightened. "Where do you think you are going?" she asked softly. Her voice held power, and Emeka's legs wobbled. He met her gaze, refusing to bow his eyes. "I'm leaving," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "I can't stay here any longer." Amora's mouth curved into a small smile. She did not release his arm. "You belong to me now," she said. "You cannot simply walk away." Emeka's cheeks burned. He yanked his arm free and backed away. His foot caught on the rug, and he stumbled. Amora moved swiftly and stood before him, blocking his path to the door. Her robe fell around her like a curtain. She reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. Emeka froze as the cool touch spread warmth through his skin. "I will not hurt you, Emeka," she whispered. "But I will not let you flee." She grasped his wrist and dragged him down the hall. Emeka's heart pounded as he scrambled to keep up. They reached a door that Emeka had never seen before. It was plain wood with no mirror beside it. Amora pushed it open and marched inside without a word. He followed, blinking in the sudden dark. A single lamp hung from the ceiling, its light dim and eerie. The walls were covered with mirrors of different sizes, their frames carved with strange symbols. A heavy scent of incense filled the air. Emeka swallowed hard and stepped inside. Amora closed the door and turned to face him. The mirrors reflected her tall form and Emeka's small shape standing in front of her. She folded her arms and watched him with calm eyes. Emeka's breath caught in his throat. The room felt like a trap. He swallowed and forced himself to speak. "Let me go," he said. "Why are you doing this? What did I ever do to deserve this?" Amora's smile faded. Her voice grew colder, older. "You know why," she said. "You saw the shadows. You heard the whispers. Now you must learn why they haunt me." She stepped toward one of the tall mirrors that stood at the far wall. Emeka stepped back. His reflection wavered in the glass, as if the mirror were breathing. Amora placed her hand on the glass. The surface rippled like water. Emeka froze, staring in disbelief. Inside the mirror, pale shapes formed. Small bodies pressed their faces against the glass from the other side. Their eyes were hollow. Their lips moved but no sound came out. Emeka's mouth went dry. He took a step forward, drawn by the silent cries. "This mirror shows what I owe," Amora said, her voice low. "Every year I must give it a life. A child's life fuels my youth and strength." Emeka's legs trembled. He shook his head as if to wake himself from a bad dream. "No," he whispered. "It can't be true." Amora turned and looked at him. "It is true," she said. "Every year I choose a child. I bind them. I offer their life. And the mirror returns their spirit, trapped behind the glass." Emeka's chest tightened. He clutched the edge of a small marble table. "You killed them," he said. "You killed children." His voice rose, echoing in the mirrored room. The pale faces in the glass pressed harder, their fingers splayed against the other side. Emeka saw one boy's eyes flare with fear. One girl's mouth opened as if she wanted to scream. He felt tears prick his eyes. Amora crossed her arms and studied him. "They were chosen," she said quietly. "They were offered to me by the darkness in the mirror. They live on behind this glass." She tapped the mirror. "Do not pity them, Emeka. Their souls fuel my body. Their screams feed my power." She stepped back and swept her hand through the air. The incense smoke curled around her like a cloak. Emeka pushed himself away from the marble table. He looked at Amora with horror. His hands shook so badly he could not stand. "Stop it," he said. "Stop this. If you are so strong, you do not need to hurt anyone." His voice cracked. The mirror rippled again. The children's shapes writhed, as if they felt his anger. Their eyes locked on him, pleading. Amora's lips curled upwards. "You speak as if you know strength," she said. "But you will see soon what true power costs." Her eyes gleamed. Emeka's heart hammered. He needed to end this. He looked around for something he could use. His gaze fell on a heavy lamp on the marble table. It was brass with a thick glass shade. It stood like a small statue. Emeka stepped toward the lamp. His mind raced. If he smashed the mirror, maybe the children would be free. Maybe Amora would lose her power. He reached out and grabbed the lamp. It felt solid in his small hand. He turned and faced the mirror. The pale children watched him. Their mouths opened wider, but still no sound. "You will not destroy this," Amora said. She lunged forward, but Emeka was faster. He lifted the lamp high and let it fall. The glass shade shattered on the marble floor. Sharp fragments flew like splinters of ice. Amora cried out and lunged at him, but Emeka stepped back. He raised the metal base and struck the mirror with all his strength. The surface cracked at the impact and then shattered into 1,000 pieces. Glass rained down. Each shard caught the dim light and scattered it across the room. The children's trapped forms flickered and bent until they slipped through the broken glass like mist. A terrible cry filled the air. It was not a child's cry or a human cry. It sounded as if all the suffering of the world had been released at once. Emeka covered his ears, but the sound grew louder, echoing off the walls. Hot tears ran down his cheeks. He fell to his knees amid the broken lamp pieces and mirror fragments. Amora stood in the middle of the shattered mirror shards. For a moment she looked unharmed, her robe billowing around her. Then she shivered and her strong form began to sag. Her skin lost its glow. The fine lines around her eyes deepened into wrinkles. Her muscles deflated like a leaking balloon. Her hair lost its color and turned gray. Emeka watched in shock as she crumpled to the floor. The ivory robe tore and hung in tatters around her. She stared up at the broken mirror frame, her eyes blank. Emeka crawled forward but hesitated. He had never felt so afraid. Yet he knew he had done the right thing. The terrible cry faded into a distant whisper, then silence. Amora lay on the hard floor, her chest rising and falling slowly. Her hands, once strong and firm, now trembled. Emeka squeezed his eyes shut and opened them again. She was no longer the mighty Slay Queen. She was an old woman broken by her own dark bargain. Emeka felt his throat tighten. He knelt beside her and gently touched her shoulder. Amora's eyes fluttered. She looked at Emeka and tried to smile, but the effort failed. "Why?" she whispered, her voice weak. "Why did you do that?" Emeka's eyes blurred with tears. He swallowed. "Because you hurt children," he said softly. "Because no one should stay young by hurting others." Amora closed her eyes and nodded once. A single tear rolled down her wrinkled cheek. Emeka stood and looked around the room. The lamp lay in shards. The mirror was reduced to broken edges in the frame. Dust drifted in the air, sparkling like tiny stars in the fading light. Emeka felt emptiness fill him where fear had lived. He felt grief for the children who had suffered and for the woman who had given in to darkness. He turned away from Amora and found his sandals. He slipped them on and looked back once. Amora lay still, her breathing shallow but steady. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He only knew he had to leave this place and the memory of that terrible mirror behind. He walked to the door and paused. He looked at Amora one last time. Her slow rise and fall reminded him that even broken hearts still beat. He whispered, "Goodbye," and slipped out into the hall. The door closed behind him with a soft click that echoed in his chest. In the silent corridor, Emeka took a deep breath and walked toward the stairs. The mirror room lay behind him, its secret shattered. He did not look back again. Emeka stepped out into the pale light of dawn. The front door of the mansion closed softly behind him. He felt the cool morning air brush his face. In his pocket was a folded scrap of paper with his aunt's address. In the other pocket, he hid Amora's phone, proof of her cruelty. He took a deep breath and pushed the heavy gate open. The hinges groaned once, then fell silent. As Emeka walked down the long driveway, he looked back at the mansion's windows. Through one broken pane, he saw the jagged edges of the shattered mirror frame. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw a small hand pressed against the glass, as if someone still reached out for help. He blinked and the image was gone. His heart thumped, but he forced himself to keep moving. He hurried past flowering bushes and trimmed hedges, his sandals slapping on the stone path. Each step felt lighter than the last. He thought of the children trapped in that mirror room, now free, and felt relief mixed with fear. He gripped the scrap of paper and vowed to find help for those souls. The road ahead was empty, but Emeka did not slow down. When he reached the main road, the sky was brightening to pink. A few cars passed by, and a motorcycle rumbled past him. He stepped onto the sidewalk and kept walking toward home. His legs ached, but he ignored the pain. He only had one thought: get back to Aunt, tell her everything, and find someone who would believe him. The journey felt long, though he barely stopped to rest. He walked past shops opening their doors and vendors stacking crates of fruit. Some people glanced at him as he hurried by, but no one knew of his terrible secret. He kept his head down, focusing on the scrap of paper in his hand. After a while, he recognized a crooked sign marking his aunt's street. Emeka turned the corner and slowed. The small house stood just as he had left it. White walls a little chipped, and a tin roof that glinted in the sun. He pushed the gate open with a gentle pull. Inside the yard, his aunt sat on the front step, her head bowed and her hands folded. When she saw him, she gasped and rose to her feet. "Emeka!" she cried, her voice trembling. She rushed toward him and wrapped him in her arms. He felt her warm tears seep through his shirt. He hugged her back tightly, relief washing over him. "I thought something happened," she said between sobs. "You are safe." Emeka stepped back and wiped his eyes. "I'm all right, Aunt," he said. "But we have to act fast." He unfolded the scrap of paper and showed her Amora's address. He pulled out the phone and handed it to her. "Look," he said quietly. "She did this. She hurt children." His aunt took the phone with shaking hands. She opened the hidden folder and saw the pictures again. Silent proof of Amora's terrible acts. "Oh, my child," she whispered. "We must go to the police." She looked up, hope and fear mingled in her eyes. Emeka nodded. "They might not believe us," he said. "Who will believe a slay queen is a monster?" His aunt's face grew determined. "We have to try," she said. "Those children deserve justice." She slipped the phone into her bag and put the paper in her pocket. They stepped through the gate together and walked toward the busy street. Just as they reached the corner, Emeka's pocket buzzed. He pulled out his own phone. It was not Amora's. He unlocked it and saw a new message notification from an unknown number. His breath caught. He opened the message. On the screen was a single photograph. A faint child's face pressed against glass, eyes wide and sad. The child's lips moved in a silent plea. Emeka stared at the image, his heart pounding. He looked at his aunt, who gasped beside him. Neither spoke. The photograph faded from the screen as suddenly as it had appeared. Emeka's hand shook as he held the phone. He realized then that some reflections never fade, and some horrors follow you forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe. Here is another interesting story to watch. Click to watch now.